What if you made your time alone with God special, really wonderful, something you enjoy, where you, even if you're not sure anyone else will hear what's in your heart, you can share with our Father what's actually going on.
Welcome to the Practice of Stillness video series, where we look at how Latter-day Saints can bring more stillness into their spiritual practices and everyday life too. I'm Carrie Skarda.
And I'm Jacob Hess. In this episode, we're zooming in on the moment when prayer just feels meh. What can we do when prayers go flat, or when praying just doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot?
We're using this term mindfulness as well as stillness, and some people wonder what that means, what mindfulness means, especially in a Latter-day Saint context. And for me, what that means is being fully present and bringing our attention to the present moment with an energy of compassion and gentleness without judgment.
I'm thinking about Elder Bednar's talk in April, where he acknowledged the power of just being still and quiet. And he nudged us a little beyond that. He talked about a higher and holier approach to this, and he used the language of an inner stillness of the soul, where he encouraged us to recognize that there is something to be found in the stillness, and even someone to be found. That as followers of the Savior, stillness is a place we can commune with the living God, which is really a unique approach to stillness when compared with those that look to stillness as the be-all and end-all.
I love that stillness isn't just about quieting ourselves, it's about connecting. As Christians, it's about connecting that quietness to God.
The kind of prayerful presence that Carrie is describing is really a radical act, as we show our willingness to stay in reality and not just run away, being present to what's actually going on in our heart, mind, and life. And in my experience, this kind of courageous vulnerability can be a huge catalyst for more meaningful prayers.
Bishop Desmond Tutu, he talks about this a little bit. He's the Anglican Archbishop in South Africa. He was asked once how his relationship with God and prayer has changed as he's gotten older. And he said this beautiful quote. He said, "I think I'm trying to grow in just being there. Like when you sit in front of a fire in winter, you're just there in front of the fire and the fire warms you." I love that image of prayer being like sitting in front of a fire where the fire warms us, that just being with God, there's something so healing about that. And now in my life, I've had more moments like that where I've approached prayer as sitting by the fire, but there was definitely a time where I call it my temper tantrum against God, where I was so angry at God because he was not doing what I so neatly outlined for him to do for me, that I decided I was going to stop speaking to him, that I was going to punish God and stop speaking to him. There was so much hurt there that it would trip me up, and I just couldn't really be present in prayer. But this idea of really authentically coming to God helped me get past that. It opened prayer back up for me. And I realized I could even bring the resistance I was experiencing, or the frustration or the anger I was experiencing in prayer, to God. I could be that honest with him.
One thing that helps me when I have a lot of stuff going on inside, whether it's frustration or fears or distractions, is to remember the snow globe that my grandma used to have at her house. You've seen them where you shake them up, and then as long as you just hold it, you know what happens. Things just start to settle. That is my minute before praying. If I just don't do anything, don't say anything, don't move, just let things settle, I can almost see sediment inside me, just kind of. And then after that sediment clears, I see more clearly how I actually feel, noticing things that otherwise, if I just launch into a conversation, it's kind of superficial, because I'm not really coming from what's in my heart, coming from how my life is going. So that also helps me be real, just letting things settle.
In fact, I've even done this with primary kids, where I'll use the analogy of the snow globe before we start our prayer in our class and just let ourselves settle. And they actually catch on to it. It's definitely a skill that we can all learn. Bringing our attention into our bodies and bringing it back to being totally present with God and with whatever it is we're experiencing with him. When attention has wandered, people who meditate learn this. People who are engaged in meditation, they learn to bring their attention back over and over and over. And it's an expected part of meditation that your mind is going to wander and you're going to bring it back. And when we're in prayer, we can have that same intention of just coming back to being present with God.
What the mind does, just like the ocean. And instead of thinking, oh, this isn't working, or I'm not praying right, just bringing your attention back to Him and to your own heart.
I love that. And really reconnecting with God in that moment. It sounds easy to stay present in prayer, but actually really authentically showing up truthfully is something that takes practice.
So no matter what your experience with prayer has been, let this be a new moment. Try approaching your next prayer as if for the very first time, what some call a beginner's mind. We all know what it feels like to just say the same things over and over in prayer. Try something else, being with God in the way Carrie described, really relishing it and sharing what is really going on in your life.
The Savior is such a great example of this. He frequently made time to get away and be still. And as his followers, there are so many opportunities for us to find moments of stillness in our spiritual and religious life. Thank you so much for joining us today in the practice of stillness. We look forward to sharing more experiences with stillness with you in future videos too.